Hello everyone, welcome back to our Digital Fashion Network webinar series. I hope you all have had a nice Easter break, and we are today back with our webinar again with our speaker, Sarah Carsley from USA. And as you know, this webinar is part of our Digital Fashion Network webinar series. This is the fourth in a row. And the topic of our today's webinar is blended learning models for supply chain upskilling. The webinar will include bridging the digital divide. So that's very interesting thing that I have come to know from our speaker. There is division among the stakeholders when we talk about digitalization. So our speaker will highlight on these and will also give us the solutions, potential solutions for bridging this gap. And the webinar will also highlight on the importance of hands-on and practical training and mentorship for reinforcing the digital skills and applying them in real world applications or real world scenario. And last but not the least, our speaker will also highlight about the importance of collaboration between industry and academia. So this is in a nutshell about the webinar. And before I hand over the virtual floor to our speaker, let me introduce her to you. I guess some of you already know her. She is very active in the industry and helping the fashion supply chain mostly to adopt the digital tools, digitalization. Sarah is a social impact entrepreneur focused on a fair future of work for fashion supply chain workers. As CEO of the company named Shibi, she leads the company in its efforts to upskill and reskill the millions of workers in the supply chain who are in danger of losing their jobs to automation, in other words, digitalization. Prior to setting up her own company, she used to lead the sustainable manufacturing at Autodesk, a very renowned software company and very much used in the fashion industry, where she and her team created software for hundreds of thousands of designers, engineers, and factory owners worldwide. She serves on boards and working groups for the World Economic Forum and the Urban Manufacturing Alliance and the America's Apparel Producers Network. Sarah has a BFA from Pratt Institute and MBA from the University of San Francisco, and she lives and works in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you, Sarah, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sayampai. I really appreciate the invitation. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you, and I'm glad to hear you had a nice spring break. Let me just share my screen here. Is that coming through okay?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Okay, excellent. So before I get into the business of digital skill development, I just want to acknowledge that you've all chosen a difficult industry to come into and try to make change. The apparel sector is not an industry that really adopts technology quickly. It's one that does in time, but it really takes some special skills in order to be successful, regardless of whether you are working on a supply chain solution like I am, or 3D modeling or material selection, or even a consumer-facing digital solution. So I wanted to just think a little bit with you on the onset about the skills that I've been working in this sector for a long time now, and I really see some commonality in the skills that set people apart. So the first one is really somebody who has a breadth of expertise. So that means they can go really long or wide, depending on which way the square is sitting. And I know that in the beginning, when you're a student and when you're leaving university and beginning to go out into the workforce, you might not have that breadth, but I want to encourage you to, as you're getting those first jobs and internships, really reach a little bit beyond what your job focus is and gather more experience so you are somebody that can do a lot of different things. That's something that's really, really important. The second piece, some people call this soft skills, but I don't like that term because I don't think they're really soft. I think they're more about power. So really the ability to talk to other people, to be clear and kind when you might have a difficult conversation or there's some friction between what you want to happen and what they don't want to happen. So this is another area that I think people absolutely need to develop in themselves, along with all of the subject matter expertise that you're building in school and will build in your jobs. The other piece is resourcefulness. So this is an industry that really doesn't give up money very quickly. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have a digital solution that you're going to bring to market, it's going to take a while to get to a paid pilot or to get to a customer, because this industry operates on margins. So if you can see this picture here, it just shows the cost breakdown of a t-shirt, and everybody is scrambling for pennies on the margin. And because of that, there is a real feeling of financial insecurity across the industry. And if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to feel really safe in your finances and your savings before you're going to really reach and try something new. And this is just unfortunately where we are in the industry. I'm not saying this to dissuade you. I think I'm saying it because I think it brings up the importance of having the skill of resourcefulness. How can you, if you are interested in sustainability and introducing a digital solution that's going to drive progress towards an ESG goal or something, how can you think about how you can save the organization money or time or increase the level of sales while also achieving that sustainability target? And that's a really, really important skill for anyone who wants to really create change in an industry, in my view, that definitely needs it. And then the last piece is, it's relevant for our industry, but it's relevant for everybody living on the planet right now. It's just this idea of building resilience. You might think that your career or your life is moving in one particular direction, but the world is crazy. One thing after another seems to pop up, and the ability to have that elasticity, that growth mindset of saying, okay, I thought I was going to go in this particular direction, but it just seems like the conditions are not where I thought they were going to be, and you would move someplace else. I use the image of a swarm of birds in the sky, because if you watch that, there's so many of them moving around, and one can just allow the flock to move in a different way, but they all stay together because there is that elasticity built into the group. So I wanted to start and just kind of hopefully help you and give you some clues of what's helped me be successful in this industry, and skills I've seen in others who've also changed things for the better. I'm so delighted to be in a meeting and be asked to join a digital webinar series from the Manchester Fashion Institute, because these guys were on a big poster in my room as a kid. I thought that Manchester was the center of the world when I was in high school, and maybe it still is. So it's just personally really delightful for me, even though I'm sitting in Brooklyn, to be in a webinar and to be invited through Manchester. Now, this guy also was in a poster, and I was equally impressed with him, but for different reasons than I was impressed with the front men of Oasis. I'm not sure how many of you know who this person is, but this is Buckminster Fuller. He was a mathematician and a humanist. You might have heard of some of his theories or designs. The geodesic dome was a Buckminster Fuller innovation. He believed in this concept of the spaceship Earth, where the Earth is a spaceship and there's just a finite amount of air and water and resources and goodwill towards each other, and really encouraged people to think about that we're all in the spaceship moving together, and we've got to figure out how to coexist and help each other. And Buckminster Fuller had a provocation that I heard, I think, as a person that has really stayed true to me my entire life now that I'm not a young person, which is to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or disadvantage of anyone. Now, that is an incredibly challenging thing to do. How can you build something that's going to help everybody? You're going to do it quickly. People are going to cooperate to get there, and there won't be any downstream ecological offense or, an uneven playing field for everybody. It's incredibly hard, but it's been something I've been striving towards my whole life and will continue to do so because it's what I think is just a wonderful North Star. The room in my childhood was in a town that looked like this. This is in Pennsylvania, where I grew up in a house like this. These are called row homes, and it was not strange at all that there were these giant rusty ghosts all through my hometown. These were abandoned factories, and in the 1980s, when I was really little, these factories went out of business and hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs. There's a famous Billy Joel song about it called Allentown, and in the United States, it's really the poster city for deindustrialization. And it was a really tragic thing. I saw guys like this, like my uncle and my grandfather who worked in the blast furnace, really struggle to find other work. There was this attitude that the factory just didn't care about people, and they made bad business decisions. And I really saw my hometown struggle economically for decades because this big manufacturing center went away. And I'm starting to see that trend in the apparel sector. We have really scary headlines just about job loss in large, fashion-producing countries, the lack of employers feeling that their workers are ready for more digitalization and Industry 4.0. And, if we look at what those pieces of automated equipment are, they look like this. And you're probably working with some of these in your classes or in labs. And we just began to collect, what are these pieces of machinery or technology that are going to come in and create those scary numbers that I saw on the screen before. And the truth of the matter is, automation in our industry is not like you see in a car factory where you have industrial robots working with other pieces of automated equipment and everything has, connection points to data management in the back. And, there are very few people on the factory floor. That's not the way it is at all. The automation in our sector is much quieter when you get to the cut and sew portion of production. And, it might be that there's a digital screen on a new sewing machine that comes into place. There might be an automatic feature that wasn't there before. So it's more of a quiet erosion and less like the type of automation that decimated my hometown. But regardless, it's making changes between that relationship between a machine and the human being that's working alongside that machine. So it prompts the question, all right, we know that automation is coming. It's not going anywhere. How do we, so that these women who work in a garment factory in Bangladesh, how do we make sure that they're not left behind and it doesn't take the decades of time that it took my hometown to recover economically? And that is really the work that my team and I do every single day that I feel very honored to be able to do. So if we go back to these, these don't give, they scare you, and that's great, but they don't really give you enough information to actually do something meaningful. So we decided to do a little bit more of a granular analysis to try to figure out how we could go in and we could help women like we're in that picture a few slides ago. So we developed a research methodology called the Apparel Automation Pulse. And basically, we go out to factories in a geographic location. This time we did the pulse in Dhaka, in Bangladesh, which is home to a lot of garment production. And we said, factories, what kinds of machines do you have? What are you planning to purchase? We are able to understand if they put in an automatic belt loop attacher, for example, what does that mean in terms of jobs? Who gets access to the training for that particular piece of machinery? What do they need to know to be considered for that kind of job? How many people will that machine replace? And what happens to those people? Do they get fired? Do they get moved to another part of the factory? And that gives us almost a demand curve for automation and digitalization in the supply chain. And we can say, all right, in this period of time, we do it in 18-month pulses because that's about how long it takes production and procurement people to figure out what kinds of machines they want. And that tells us what kinds of skills are going to be relevant in the short term. And then for people who want to intervene and help bring the workforce along with that shift, they know what they need to skill to. So once we know the machines, what kinds of skills are needed, we use something called Bloom's taxonomy, which I know every educator on this call is familiar with. It's a wonderful way to think about learning objectives as you try and teach somebody something. So, at the bottom level of Bloom's taxonomy, this is kind of like multiple choice questions you've probably received. All your teacher wants to know is, do you remember the name for this thing? Understanding is, okay, the name of this thing. Now tell me more about like what it does and tell me that in your own words. Applying that learning is, okay, I know what this thing is. I know what it does functionally. Now here's how I would use it. Analysis is, well, here's how it's supposed to be running. I know that, but I'm noticing that there's a problem with it, and I'm analyzing why that's happening. I'm evaluating that more deeply, and then maybe I'm creating a solution for an extra component or another script to run to solve the problem. So these are different levels of teaching something to somebody. So if we look at, that scary comment before that only 10% of employees are ready for Industry 4.0, let's look at the skills that people would need to develop to get ready. So for these folks, these are, managers who are supervisors or production managers. They might have to make a case to their boss that they want to implement a new digital software or a new type of automated machine. And they're going to need to show, here's how this thing is going to pay for itself and help our business grow. So that would be an analysis type of skill that they'd need to learn. They would need to be able to look at a workforce and say, okay, we want to bring in this new digital tool. That worker and that worker and that worker are the ones that we should train for this. And they need to have a good reason as to why. Eventually, they might be responsible for putting that machine on the factory floor, and they would need to build a script in order for that machine to run with the the other scripts or for the machine toolpath to do what it needs to do. And people on a management level are operating up here. They're not operating in these lower tiers of Bloom's taxonomy. Now, if we look at these women who are sewing machine operators, let's see what kinds of skills we would need to teach them. The first thing we need to do is just help them remember, how many thread cones does this particular machine have? Could I pick it out on the factory floor because I remember what this machine looks like? At a higher level, that might get into repair or technician related work. We always see in factories walls of fame where workers will very cleverly figure out, if we do this one thing a little bit differently, it's going to make this whole system run much more smoothly. And that's an example of working at that create and evaluate level of Bloom's taxonomy. The analysis of just diagnosing that this problem is happening over and over and over again with this machine, being able to understand the shapes and the symbols that are on a digital screen and then being able to apply those to run it. And, thinking about the processes that happen before and after them, because that context is very rarely taught, oddly, in an assembly line. It's just really, you're taught, here's how to be good at the machine you're running, and here's, how to join these two things together, and good luck, more or less. So this is really thinking about how do I work better as a team, and how do I bring more success to this department or this company or this industry. And this is what training looks like in a factory. So you have people that are, working on the factory floor. They're taken off. Sometimes their production targets of like how many pieces they need to make by the end of the day, that'll get adjusted. Sometimes it doesn't, unfortunately. And they sit here and they learn, somebody gives a PowerPoint presentation, hopefully more interesting than the one I'm giving you now. And they learn, and then they go back to their desk, and that's it. And retention isn't very good. There isn't a lot that continues after the training. It's very staccato, if you will. Then, if they're learning a particular machine, they'll just take scraps of fabric and go through and practice and practice and practice. This is a health training that's happening with an organization called CARE, and that might happen in a break room or a clinic in a factory, just teaching good health and hygiene. But this is how a training typically looks. And then once you are getting towards the end of training, you'll be given pieces of paper. And you'll have to practice your stitching across that piece of paper, and they get more and more complicated as you go on. This always makes me laugh because sewing is easy, sewing is profitable, sewing is fun. It just feels kind of like a weird Big Brother sort of thing. But this is what those sewing exercises look like. And then once you're on the factory floor, you're there and you might be trained a little bit as a new style comes into play. And your performance is very visual and it's out there. Like if you could imagine as a student, if you're not doing very well in a course and you have a red triangle above your desk or your head and like an AR mixed reality thing that just says quality problem. This is what it's like in the factory. So if you're doing a good job, if you're meeting your throughput requirements, there will be a green dot or a green triangle above. And if you're not doing a good job, everybody knows. And there's that marker above your station. And that's very shameful. I would feel a lot of shame if I had a red triangle above my thing and maybe I felt powerless to try and change it. And in those cases, those people do get extra training, but it feels very punitive. It doesn't feel empowering or setting a tone of, interest or curiosity, which are a lot of those skills that underpin the stuff I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. And in the fashion industry, it's just-in-time manufacturing. So unless you're a company that makes t-shirts and you make the same t-shirt, you've been making the same t-shirt for, you know, 30, 40 years, and that t-shirt, gets printed and that's that. You're operating in a way that's called just-in-time manufacturing. So that's creating items as they're needed. It's not creating a bunch of items and having them in a warehouse and hoping that people buy them later. It's very like the order comes in, the prices are negotiated, the timeline is negotiated, the goods are made, they're shipped to the store, and there you have it. And our view is that if that is the way we are manufacturing products in the supply chain, then we should be teaching people in a just-in-time learning model as well, which means that we're providing information in increments as the nature of orders change and new styles are introduced. We're giving people the chance to proactively go seek learning. And it's not this structured, scheduled, professional development event, and then you're on your own. So that's really the thesis that gave birth to my company. Now, the obvious way to deliver this is through VR experiences. No, I'm just kidding. This is like the most terrible idea I've ever seen. There are trends now in training people through VR, and what I've learned, sometimes painfully, sometimes not so painfully, in developing digital tools is that you have to go out and do a ton of user research to validate or invalidate your assumptions. And it's obvious that some of these VR solutions haven't really thought about the population that they're trying to serve. So most of the people in the lowest tiers of the supply chain are women. Many of them live in countries where sexual assault and harassment is very prevalent and don't want their peripheral vision cut off because it's a traumatizing experience for them. If we go back to, the things I talked about in the beginning, you have a very cost-sensitive industry who doesn't want to pay for hardware or put room aside so that somebody would have a safe space to carry out a VR experience. And I encourage you, as you build digital solutions, as you test them and decide whether you want to introduce them to your organization, you do that need finding. We utilize something called human-centered design, where it's a blend of different kinds of research techniques, where we will do ethnography with a group of garment workers. We will get to the underlying feelings they have about training. We'll map those feelings over the course of their day, over the course of a training experience. And that really uncovers the very best ways to train people. And I think we as technologists often get way too wrapped up in the technology. And sometimes there might be something that's not as sexy or fancy, but it's the right solution for the worker. And we've found that those are just really simple game-based applications that are delivered on a mobile phone or on a tablet. And this is what our trainings look like. So somebody can do it in private on their mobile phone in a couple minutes, and they can learn a particular machine skill, or they can do it in a blended learning environment where they're getting that on machine training, and they're also getting a training to learn more about the machine and gain the digital literacies that they need to be successful. This is what those interfaces look like. So we utilize AI to deliver the content in a bunch of different languages. We know that a lot of garment workers have only, a fourth grade or fifth grade level of education, so many can't read or write. So we make sure that they can listen to the instructions, and we use a lot of pictures and videos so that they can be successful as they move through the content. We have a really talented team of trainers and content producers who make short form TikTok-based content that'll teach somebody about a particular machine. And it's just fun also to reframe that, particularly from a gender perspective. You know, this is a advanced special machine. It's not a simple single needle sewing machine. It's much more complicated. And sometimes women don't run those machines or get access to those machines because those training opportunities are given to male workers. So really having female role models to show you can be whoever you want to be and still follow this technical career path has been incredibly important in helping us reach a large population and get those women excited about a technical career path. So our training organization will go into a factory and a classroom or a training room, and we'll do our digital training and then connect it to a hands-on machine training. We'll also go into neighborhoods where the garment workers are, and we'll do pop-ups. So we'll take over a training center and do it in a more shimmy way, which is joyful and fun and empowering. So that's what these places look like. Or we will go to a region that has a lot of people that don't know anything about our industry, and we will do targeted mobile first experiences where we'll send out games and content to a large population so that they'll get interested in new manufacturing facilities that are coming on board. And that's the shape that these types of engagements take. And, you know, I think we're onto something. So over the last few years, this number I think went up this morning because we were in a couple training centers this morning, but we've reached a little over 9,000 trainees. 72% of them are women. We're a team of 21. 81% of our team is female, which is quite unusual in a SaaS company, and particularly an industrial SaaS company. We've been working in 3 countries and 20 factories, 10 industrial sewing schools, and our customers are pretty well-known brands and 8 organizations. And we track impact really closely. Like, we don't just want to check the box and say, yeah, we gave this worker some training. We look at, has a worker been promoted? Is their income level changing? Are their confidence levels changing about their own technical skills? You know, would they recommend us to other people? That's a really important indicator as you are building a digital tool and implementing it at an organization. When we're doing pop-ups in the neighborhood, we track very closely how long it takes for somebody to get hired. And one thing we're really proud of is that our training seems to be helping trainees get in at one level higher in the organization where they work. And I want to give this advice to all of you. I want you to listen really close to me. When you're finished with your training in school, you're going to go and you're going to get a job somewhere. And whatever that starting salary is what is going to ratchet your salary up over time if you continue doing a good job. So that first negotiation is incredibly important, and you should really try and get a good number or more, frankly, than they want to offer you on that first pass. You shouldn't be afraid to do it. I'm sure you can negotiate it in a professional way, but that starting salary is going to set up your salary progression over time. So it's incredibly important to do whatever you can to have that be a big number, so to speak, so your income is growing. And I'm proud that with our trainees in those neighborhood training centers, their starting salaries are 50% higher. So it feels like a little thing that we can do for them to help them get a leg up and hopefully help them have higher earning potential over time. we have to prove our value to factories. Factories aren't going to say like, sure, take hundreds or thousands of my workers. They're not going to be producing anything while they're in your training. So we measure efficiency, and efficiency is basically just how quickly and with high levels of quality somebody can do a task. And we recently had an independent study verify our training and found that we are increasing efficiency about 20% on average. And that might not seem like a lot when you're thinking about a test score or something like that, but that is a significant number in factories, and we'll hope that we continue doing that, improving our value so that we can continue doing this work that we love. Now, I hope it's clear about the work that Shimmy does. We provide technical skill development. We focus only on technical skill development, and that's not the magic wand that's going to suddenly change everything and help all of these garment workers live better lives. There's so much work that needs to get done. And once in a while, you have a funder or a customer of that work who has a really, really big goal and wants to bring a lot of different parties together to make it happen. And this is a project we've been working on for the last few years in Bangladesh called Oporajita. And it is a collective impact project on the future of work in Bangladesh. And you can see Shimmy's logo is down here, as well as UN's CDF, WaterAid, Save the Children, COS, Circular Apparel Innovation Factory, CARE, H&M Foundation. Lots of different parties are coming together to do this work. And I want to show you how partnerships across industry and with really different kinds of partners can come together in really interesting ways to achieve big objectives. So the context of Oparajita is basically saying that in Bangladesh, the RMG sector RMG means ready-made garments. It's an incredibly important sector, both for the economy of the country and for the people employed. So in Bangladesh, I think it's about 85% of the exports are coming from this sector. So it is a huge engine for the country. And, sometimes people who are new to our industry might say, well, these people shouldn't be garment workers, like the conditions in those factories are terrible. And they're right. I haven't met many garment workers who've told me all I wanted to do in my life is be a garment worker. Most of them want their children to be doctors or lawyers, very similar to what you hear all over the world. But when you're in a country where so much of the exports are in one industry, it's pretty hard to find work that pays that well, where there are some social protections in place. So that's why a lot of people end up in the industry. And this group has come together and said digitalization and automation is going to really change the livelihoods of these people, and this is going to take hold over the next 20 years. Remember, I was showing you the pulse work that we do. That piece of research fits into the navigation of this multi-year program. We also know that women workers are dropping out because if there are less jobs in the economy and only one person gets a job, it can be emasculating for the husband in the family to give the woman that job and for him to be unemployed. That's just, where they are with gendered norms in Bangladesh at the moment. And that's changing, which is great, but that's the reality of the situation. And that really plays into the negative gender stereotypes. So the funders of this organization, which is H&M Foundation, the Swedish Embassy, and COS, said, how could we come in and put a bunch of important interventions together to help these people, help them with that resilience component to give them better agency? What can we do? So they realized that, there's a skills and employment component that needs to happen. If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you're not going to be super down to learn new skills or stretch or be curious if there's a lot of insecurity in your environment. So there needs to be an enabling environment to support these women as they learn and change and grow. And then there's a role for industry where the industry's got to be more competitive and more aligned with this way of thinking, which is really about equity and a better future of work. So here's how this program plays out. This is a very detailed slide, so I'm not going to talk about everything, but you've got, you know, on the skills and employment side, you've got soft skills. The workers themselves aren't the only ones that need to build their technical skills. Their managers and the management need to really think about, what is this department like that maybe has only had male workers in it traditionally? What is it like to have a place that's welcoming to, you know, women workers? You know, we're focusing on the skilling component of it, obviously, which is the upskilling and helping people learn multiple machines. So there's more diversified apparel production. From the industry competitiveness perspective, like there's support in terms of modernizing, and from an enabling environment, really thinking about initiatives that can be carried out in the community to help workers with very, very basic needs that I think we take for granted every day. So this is what a skills training looks like from a leadership perspective. You've already seen what our training looks like, so I won't show that to you again. This is an example of a clean water station that's put into a neighborhood where workers are living, so that way they might not need to go out and get that fresh water. It's much closer, and that provides them more time and more ease. And then from the sector competitiveness perspective, you know, really changing hearts and minds and culture where, you know, an industry that's enabling and inclusive is rewarded and not something that's seen as a threat or too much of a big change or challenge. So this has been a really, really cool project, and to come together with so many different organizations. You know, we are the digital solution that's in this whole collective impact project, and that's been really interesting too. I'm sure there are people on this webinar who will also be in a position like that at some point, and you know, software and digital tools favor scale, and I think we have a big role to play, those of us as tool makers and champions of digital solutions. So this project has updates and user stories and all kinds of other information. And if you want information on that, this is the website for it. And if you want to keep in touch with me and keep in touch with Shimmy overall, our handle is Everybody Shimmy pretty much everywhere, and our website is shimmy.io, and there's a contact form there. If you have any questions for me specifically, you're more than welcome to send me a note there, and they do get to me. So I'll stop there. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end, but thank you for letting me share a little bit about what we think about and what we do.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. You are playing a big role for the industry, I must say. But have you ever had the feeling that you are alone?
No, I mean, maybe I did in the early days when Shimmy was just me, but you know, now I look at the 21 of us, you know,
Okay,
who
as
work
a
every
team,
day.
as you are 21 in your team, but as a team, with
Yes.
a single team that working for the workers, Kermis factory
Mm.
workers, the women workers. What do you think how this can be propagated?
Well, I think, you know, Shimmy is is doubling or tripling our growth every year. So I think having those software tools, having the industry have more of an appetite for them are things that have really helped us grow over time. Yeah, I think, those are some of my thoughts initially.
Great. So we'll take questions from our audience. If you want to come to the microphone, just raise your hand. I will activate your mic so that you can ask your question directly to our presenter. Or if you prefer to write in the chat box, feel free to do so. So I will read this out so that our speaker can answer your question. So you have got a digital platform for providing training. Usually, what actually technology you cover in your training? I mean, do you cover digital design, CAD CAM?
Yes, a little bit. So we have one lesson that is called Mini Marker that basically is teaching somebody how to lay out a digital marker for an automated cutting tool. So they're learning how to lay those digital pattern pieces on a plane. We get into some of the Cartesian plane, which if you're operating a cutting tool that has a laser, you need to understand an X and a Y axis and how to move a point across that line. Some of our digital product assembly pieces are teaching somebody to wrap we use a two-dimensional avatar just because of Wi-Fi and bandwidth. It's a better experience, but teaching how to lay digital pattern pieces together so that those could be assembled in a 3D modeling software. But really, it's just something that's helping us teach whole garment assembly and also giving them a base level digital literacy that could be translated into digital production tools.
Right. Thank you. I can see a hand raised from Ido. Ido, I have activated your mic and camera. Feel free to come to camera and ask your question to Sarah.
Hello.
Just unmute yourself. It look like you are muted at the moment.
Or if that's not working, you can type your question into the chat, and I'm glad to read it out on your behalf, whatever's easier.
Edu, can you hear us? I have enabled your mic and camera, so you should be able to use them. Don't know, this could be any internet issues. I know he has joined us from Nigeria, so it's a far away. So we have got, this is the interesting thing. When we run the webinar, we see our speakers and the audience coming from all over the world,
That's cool.
from different continents. Yeah.
Can people put in the chat where they're calling in from?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Can you just put it in the chat box? Where are you
I'm
joining
from
us today?
Brooklyn.
Yes, Sarah is from Brooklyn and I'm from Manchester. There is a Manchester in the USA as well.
In New Hampshire, yes, but
Yeah,
you are the
they have got
original
a university called
Manchester.
University of Manchester. So very interesting.
Yes. Well, like I said, as a kid in the 90s, all the best bands from the UK were coming out of Manchester, so it was a special place. Great. Nottingham, cool. And do folks have any just career level questions? It's a tough time to be a student and think about the going out and getting a job when the economy isn't so great and there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I graduated from business school right in the midst of a big financial crisis in the US in 2009. So I remember those jittery feelings. I'm speaking to a group of MBAs next week, and I'm definitely going to try to let them know that it's hard, but
I can see a question from Adeu in the chat
mm,
box now. And now, Adeu, accept my apology if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But the question is, he wanted to know how can he collaborate with you?
sure. Well, you can here, I'll just give you you can email me. I'll put my email address in the chat, and we can find some time to chat and see if there's a way we can help. We haven't worked in
Hello?
Africa yet, so it would be great. Oh, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Nice to meet you.
Yes, we can
Oh,
hear
can you
you.
hear
Yeah.
me now?
Yes.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. I want to appreciate the organizer of this discussion. I really want to commend the Digital Fashion Innovation Network, and it's been very, very interesting. You are giving us information about current trends, about issues relating to textile. And the reason why I am so excited is that, down here in Nigeria, we have little or very, very close to very little when it comes to digital technology as far as textile is concerned. So my concern has always been how do we tap from what you have over there? I teach in the university. I'm also into research, but then looking at the scenario here, we need more of collaboration so that we can brainstorm, we can share ideas, and what you people are doing over there, we can have some of them here. Although our level of technology advancement, we can't compare with what you have over there, but we can start from a little way. So that's just the area I'm concerned about. I really want to thank Abu Saad Mohammed Sayen.
Thank you.
He's
You're
been
very welcome.
so, yeah, no. I need to say thank you. You can have an opportunity and keep it to yourself. But I can see you like to share it, you like to disseminate, and that's a good mind. So I really want to appreciate that, and our presenter also for coming. For coming to share your experience with us. I really want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. So more of that collaboration. I wouldn't mind. I can come over there. We can spend some time together. And then we see how to build a trust. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
You're
the kind
welcome.
words.
I can recall you have submitted an abstract for our conference, right? The conference we are organizing in July. Yeah. So how is it going with your visa application?
Yeah. I'm true. I've been granted.
Okay, great. Yeah, I look forward to meeting you in person in Manchester.
Yeah. The only little challenge I have with that is that I've been trying to look for a little fund for my travel, and I've not been able to get sufficient, but already have secured a visa for the travel.
Okay, great. Yeah, nice to hear. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. And there is a question from Amit Gupta from New Delhi, India. And again, the question is regarding a collaboration. And if I just read it out, can we have some of your views on upskilling opportunities in India? Are you working in India at the moment?
We aren't, and I don't know much about what's going on there, and I try not to speak about things I don't know anything about. So I'm sorry, Amit, I don't
Yes,
know.
it's a very big country, India. Probably,
Yeah.
Amit, you can get in touch with Sarah and start a discussion about this. Right. There has been a hand raised from Gadha, but she has left. I don't know what the this could be internet or anything. She is not with us at the moment, but thank you all of you for your questions. We have got little more time to take more questions. If there is anybody wants to ask questions, feel free.
Okay. Maybe we answered all the questions.
Yeah, look like we have answered all of the questions, and like always, this session is recorded, as you can see, and we will put the recording on our YouTube channel and linked it with our website. You will be able to watch it again, and we will share this with all the members of our network. Before we wrap up, just for you, Amit, yes, yeah, we can discuss this with me and Sarah over LinkedIn for sure. And with that, thank you very much, Sarah, being with us, and hopefully we'll meet sometime in person. And by saying this, I'd like to finish now, and thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.
All the best. Bye.